this. I don't think I've given this many presentations at SaltConf in like 5 years. This has been an intense 2 days. I'm really excited to be done. So this is my kind of security SecOps philosophy presentation. This is all about the main goals that we have with the SecOps products and what we at SaltStack envision SecOps to be. And so let's dive in. What is it that we should be demanding from the cybersecurity industry? When we look at the cybersecurity industry, they're giving us one thing, but there's a serious question about their ability to legitimately deliver secure infrastructure. This is proving to be, frankly, a very challenging task. When I've gone out and I've talked to a number of CISOs and I asked them, look, if you could have anything, what do you really want for your data center security? And on many occasions, I've gotten a response which is along the lines of, I want a window of assurance. I want to know that if there's a security issue which arises, that this is going to be resolved within a reasonable period of time, and not just knowing about it, but resolved, and that it actually goes away. And I say, what is a reasonable amount of time for you, and what does that window look like today?
6 months.
And the CISO says, today, if I asked my team for 6 months, 9 months, then they would probably look at me and say, yeah, okay, we can assure you that new issues that come can be resolved in 6 to 9 months. And then I say, well, what do you want? And he says, I want 3 to 7 days. And I say, why do you want 3 to 7 days? Well, because that's how long it takes to get hacked on a new vulnerability that comes out. We know this. And then I asked the CISO, so you're telling me that a new vulnerability or issue or way to get breached comes out and you think maybe you can resolve it in 6 to 9 months? Yes. What bank do you run? A big one. We need to figure out how to deliver this, because I'm talking to these guys and they're saying we're nowhere near secure today. They can't have a window of assurance, even because they don't see a future in which they've actually deployed what they feel is a secure infrastructure. Okay? And this happens all over the place. When I read this from Gartner, I don't know that there's a stronger statement that I can use to illustrate that the cybersecurity industry, it's not working. Because knowing that you've got a hole doesn't do you any good. Do you go to bed at night and say, I'm going to sleep great because there's 47 doors in my house that are open? But that's what we're doing. We know that we've got all these holes and we can't fix them. Well, okay, so what's going on here, right? And again, I've got the whole, Equifax with Apache struts. Equifax knew that Apache struts needed to be updated. They knew for 5-6 months before that breach happened. All these guys know about their vulnerabilities, but the response just seems to be impossible. So what's going on? Why is this broken? I think I had the wrong slide. I had one that looked like better. What's happened over the last 10 years? In the last decade, we have created more ways to automate the deployment of applications and infrastructure than we can really shake a stick at, right? We've got the Kubernetes, we've got config management, we've got cloud management and pets and cattle, and all that jazz, right? We can deploy apps like nobody's business. I go and I talk to another bank, and I've got a team in there saying, "Oh, I love Salt. You know why? Oh, why do I love Salt? I love Salt because my team of 5 engineers, we used to maintain 5 apps. Now we maintain 50. Okay. Has your pipeline for securing those applications improved? No. All right. So we can deploy more apps. Everything is faster. Oh, I didn't take this slide out. This is SaltConf. You already know who I am. Okay. In case somebody doesn't know who I am, I'm Tom. It's all my fault. Okay. What does the cybersecurity industry look like today? Primarily what we're looking at here is that we spend a lot of money to define what our policies are. What are the policies that we need to enforce inside of our infrastructure? What does this need to look like to accomplish security? After we define those policies, we spend more money on scanning tools. And those scanning tools find all sorts of security alerts, as we like to call them. And then it tries to prioritize which alerts there are. It doesn't say, just so you know, you've got 1 million security alerts, you need to solve them. It says, you have 1 million security alerts. We think maybe you should focus on these 10,000 of them. Okay, great. Okay, we prioritized. After we prioritize, we analyze them again. We send them into AI systems, and we say, what's the real big deal? And which ones of these have active exploits in the wild? Where's the really important ones? At this point, you've gone through anywhere from 2 to 47 security vendors. Sorry, the largest I've seen is more than 47. And they've spent a mountain of money. And so what's at the top here, right? What is it that we do now that we've determined these are the security issues that we're going to tackle? Nothing. We've put all this energy into it. Man, Thane, you are just a liability for all of my presentations. We remediate by opening a help desk ticket. I mean, this is reality. I'm sitting down with a product manager a couple weeks ago from, again, a large security firm worth billions of dollars. And I say, so yeah, we actually fix them. And they go, no, you don't really fix them. Nobody can do that. And I say, you just spent $400 million to buy a company that can fix security issues. And she looks at me and says, they can't really do it. Well, you can buy me for, I don't know, maybe somewhere around there. But yeah, you open a help desk ticket, and it looks like this, right? Yeah, we promise we'll get to you someday. How do we fix this? We need secure infrastructure. But it's not happening. It is getting worse day by day. It is sliding in the wrong direction. How do we solve a problem like this? The first thing that we need to do is understand that problem. We've talked about a little bit in here. We need to understand the people. Understanding the people involved in a problem is a big deal. We need to know what their motivations are. We need to know what makes these people tick. We need to know, what is this person in this seat thinking when they wake up in the morning? And then we need to have a willingness to rethink what our approach can be so that we can actually solve these problems. So what is SecOps? SecOps is one of those buzzwords that we use that nobody agrees on what it means, and it's not cohesive at all. I mean, right? We've been doing this for a while. Now, what I'm going to try and define SecOps as is that we have tools that allow security teams and operations teams to work together. That we have tools that allow them to make the processes that they have towards creating secure infrastructure more reasonable, faster, streamlined, and more reliable, and that solve the needs of both parties. In the early days of the DevOps movement, I can't tell you, and we still hear this, right? I can't tell you how often I hear this. Well, if developers and operations people would just get along, all of our problems would go away. So I was on a panel in Belgium, and the Ansible guy said that, and he got thunderous applause. And I'm going to claim jet lag because I should have bawled him out. You can't just stand up and wave your arms and say everybody's going to get along now, yay, and think that real world problems get solved from that. I wish it did. But so the question becomes, how do we actually get people to get along? How do we get people to really work together? The way to get people to work together is to understand their motivations and then give them a means wherewith they can work together to achieve shared goals. When multiple groups or people have a shared goal and they work together, no existing divide is too great of a problem because they want to get to that shared goal. We need to present that in a viable way to people. Otherwise, we're not going to get the mystical beauty of, putting something before the word ops. Now, it's also going to need to be different from the DevOps movement. If we go back 10 years, the DevOps movement was basically us saying, hey guys, we have config management now, so your operations team can write code or your developers can write operations stuff, and that'll make it better, I promise. So that's where it started. And it ended with operations losing and developers winning and them saying, hey, we're going to use Kubernetes now and do what you're told. Sorry, that might be a little blunt, but I certainly feel that way quite often. Is no operations, just deploy the darn app the way we tell you to deploy the app. The other thing is that the DevOps movement has changed their ideas on how app deployment works fairly frequently over the last 10 years. And so I don't think that we're going to have what we would call a silver bullet with containers for SecOps. We have to maintain real infrastructures. So many of them are legacy. Many of them have very, very disparate and different demands. We can't just say to solve SecOps, we're going to change how we deploy the entire world. Although that is what the DevOps movement, in again, many ways, has tried to turn to, is how are we going to change the deployment of the whole world? Okay, so let's switch over to talking about what are the motivations of these people. So who are they? When you go and you look at these security teams, they're interested in analyzing what's going on. They're all about visibility. They're all about trying to get a solid view of their infrastructure. They want to have asset management. They want to have compliance scans. They want to have vulnerability scans. They want to have network scans. They want to have visibility into what network pipes are warm, so that they can then analyze that data against their policies and come back and say, hey, here's where the problems are. But they're all about visibility. And that visibility is not only their motivation, but it's their accountability. If they came to work and they couldn't find any problems with your infrastructure for 3 weeks, how long would they have a job? Because, wow, okay, everything's secure. So that's their motivation. They've got to find those holes. That's what they wake up and want. What does their workflow look like? Now, we already talked about this workflow a little bit, but basically they're gathering security data, finding alerts, prioritizing issues, and opening up tickets. Can somebody tell me why the security team is not allowed to fix bugs in the infrastructure? Yeah, go for it, Thane.
Because there are insufficient tests to demonstrate that when a change is made, that things haven't been broken. And the safest approach is to say no to any changes.
Yeah, that's an eloquent answer. I was expecting something more snarky, like, why would we trust those dudes to make changes to my infrastructure?
Well,
This is like the first time, I've known Thane for years. This is the first time something so intellectual has come out of his mouth. So I'm going to have to remember this. My view of you has elevated.
I'll write about this in my journal.
Really, when I go back and I talk to operations teams, they will typically say something about, yes, there aren't sufficient tests that we can have outside people who are making changes to these because we need to have the internal knowledge and capability. Yeah, that's what they say when they're being nice. Typically, it is something along the lines of, those guys don't know how these systems work. I'm not going to let them dink around with them. Okay. Who are operations people? When an operations person wakes up in the morning, what do they want? What is their goal? Is their goal to fix the random security issue that was filed as a bug this morning? No, their goal is 5 nines, man. They want their nines. We live on those nines. Yeah, we want 5 nines and long nights of sleep. This is the purpose of our existence in operations. And we got to be able to deploy those apps, right? We got to deploy those applications. Those applications have to be run. They have to be updated. It's got to be smooth. That database has to keep working. It's got to run. So what does an operations person's workflow look like when they get a security issue? Now, before I cover this bottom bullet here and work up, this issue has already been prioritized and deprioritized multiple times. This is already the most important thing according to the security team. And the operations team doesn't do this out of malice. You've got to look at what's there and say, which one of these can I handle? Which one of these can I get deployed and it's not going to cause me problems? And then they have to reprioritize it. And they don't have time to get to all of them. And so the next thing that they do is that they use management tools to automate the repair of the issue. The rest of the industry says that this is SecOps. And I am not okay with that. Saying, well, it's SecOps because you can use a config tool to roll that change out a little quicker. No, that's not fast enough. This is SaltStack. We want things fast. So after they write the automation to repair the issue, they execute the automation. That is a legitimate different line. We're in operations here. We don't just willy-nilly change infra, right? We've got to be able to test it. We've got to be able to roll out to a canary environment. We've got to be able to make sure it's not going to affect our nines. And then my favorite thing is how often I run into people who come back and say, the security team came back to me 3 months later and said I didn't do it right. Because they didn't give me the tools to run that scan. And when I asked them, I think I did it right, can you run the scan again? Well, frankly, oftentimes the operation team doesn't ask them to run the scan again because most of those scans are invasive and heavy. And so they don't find out that it's not done properly right away. They don't necessarily even have validation built into all their systems. Now, of course, that's not a universal case, but it certainly happens. How can we fix this? We can't keep looking at this as a throw the problem over the wall kind of situation. We need to step back and ask ourselves, is there a way in which we can create a combined workflow? One where these teams work together to a shared goal. But you can't get two people to work together towards a shared goal unless they've got common ground and tools to work with. And so this is what we are working to deliver, is to combine these workflows. We need to take advantage of innovations that have happened in operations. We need to take advantage of the fact that operations teams have tools like Salt. Well, it's SaltConf, so I'm talking about Salt. Some conferences I've got to be all like abstract about it. I'm trying to sell you stuff. Yeah, I'm talking about Salt. So we need to have tools that facilitate these things. And so when we come back and we say, what would an optimal SecOps workflow look like? Yeah, we're still going to need to gather security data and set policy. Our security people should still be able to do that. But when those scans run with the existing security tools, there's another problem I didn't mention. Those scans that run with the existing security tools come from a specific perspective, almost always. They come from an attacker perspective, not a repair perspective. They don't look at the system and say, this system isn't configured properly. They look at the network ports and say, I was able to ping the network ports in this way. And so when those bugs get opened for the operations team, fairly often, they don't come with a specific set of, just so you know, I scanned these specific systems, and this is exactly what your configuration looks like. And by the way, here's a recommendation for what the configuration would look like if this problem were to go away. Since you're the operations person, you have full control over determining how to roll out that change. Wouldn't that be nice? If the scans were system specific as to how to make those modifications and repairs. And it just isn't always the case. There certainly are tools that are, don't get me wrong. But that's a helpful piece of information. All right. Yeah. So SaltStack SecOps is built so it's the same tool, which means that we don't need to feed the data into a management tool. It's already there. The automation has to come with the scan. When we look at other automation tools and we ask, what percentage of your scans can be fixed? The answer is typically in the 2 to 5% range. When we're putting together our SecOps tools, everything that we're finding, okay, let me back up. Something like 97% of what we're finding, we can have automation fixes for. The things that we can't have automation fixes for are things which are highly subjective as to how it would actually be set up. Okay? But for the most part, we can have the automation there. Now, the reality is that then you get to skip the step of building the automation 80 to 90% of the time. Because I fully recognize that I'm not going to be able to give you a perfect configuration, like my foresight isn't that good every time. But at this point, we're at least beginning to say maybe we shouldn't ignore the 95% of security issues that are coming in. And if we have automation already around repairing those security issues, it becomes a lot easier to get rid of the chaff, to get rid of all of those extra security issues, or many of the extra security issues that those teams aren't even giving to the operations teams. And I sit down with operations teams and they come back and they say, I look at those security issues that they don't send to us. Most of them are the easy ones to fix, and I wish I'd known. most of them aren't highly invasive. And they're changing configs that, oh, well, obviously, and that's not a big deal. And then finally, after they actually execute the automation in the environment and fix it, the operations team can just check and say, did it work? Is it still there? And then they're actually done. And then if they so desire, inside of SecOps tooling, we can go so far as to say, just automatically fix this next time if you want to be so bold. If we look at this type of workflow, we short run huge amounts of issues, primarily in the handoff. The human handoff of data is routinely the thing that slows us down the most. So what we end up with is a talk that's potentially running 15 minutes short. I thought this talk was only a half hour. Nuts. I just realized we've got a sticker that says remediate. I don't think that word means what you think it means. So I can't use the joke. I know. It's a great sticker with indigo on it. Okay. This is the change that we're striving for with our SecOps products. Is to make it so that the operations team is empowered to get their job done faster. That they are empowered with existing automation to remediate security issues. That they can reach out to those systems at the speed of salt to get this stuff fixed. That they can do it using tools and methods which make sense to the operations patterns that they already have in place. And that hopefully we can deliver more secure infrastructures. Because it would be really, really nice if we could stop a bunch of these infrastructure breaches from happening. Because frankly, the stakes get higher every day. This is one of the reasons why companies are pumping so much money into their security teams. But at the same time, the talent shortage is a real thing. I have a room in front of me full of brilliant people. You people are hard to find. And companies just aren't able to scale fast enough to bring enough of you in to actually solve these problems. We have to remediate them through automation. And we have to be bold about being able to get that automation in the hands of people. Finally, it's all about running these scans continuously and making sure that things are still in line. So today we are announcing our new product, Protect, so that we add to compliance the ability to I'm really sorry. It's been a long 2 days. These salt comps, man, they're fun and all, but oh, man. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, so our new product has the ability to scan for security issues inside of installed software. And again, the beauty about Salt is, well, we already know how to fix that. But also, since we've already got a minion on those systems, we can actually scan them to determine whether or not that software is in use, which makes it even easier to know what it is we can safely update. Because Salt, of course, is able to go in and get introspection on what services and processes are currently running and tie those services and processes back to their respective software packages. So that it's easy for us to also post that, you know what really matters is whether or not that software is being used, because, you know, when it's being used and turned on is where you get breached and attacked. Okay. We have I think we've just got the keynote left, the closing keynote. I want to thank everybody for coming to SaltConf. I want to thank everybody for putting up with me, for those of you who have endured my presentations. And thank you for enjoying the many other fantastic presentations which we get every year at SaltConf. I would encourage everybody to go to the closing keynote. We put a lot of work into it. I'm really excited for it for two reasons. We've got great speakers, and I'm not one of them. Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments, arguments, or rebuttals?
Anything?
Yeah, I was wondering, I know last year at SaltConf is when you guys rolled out SecOps and you today announced more, features and upgrades to it. Are there any plans to ever put any of the SecOps stuff into Salt Open?
So the SecOps stuff that we have is very much engineered from the Enterprise Console. And what it is also is a data stream that's made available through that Enterprise Console. Now, on the roadmap, our plan and our hope is that eventually, I don't have a finite date, but we do want to eventually make that content purchasable so that it can be run directly from just a Saltmaster. So we do have plans to eventually decouple and allow it to be streamlined there. There's a couple of reasons for that. It's not just that we've got people who really hate buying enterprise software, but also that there are a number of situations, especially when it comes to Salt. Salt is a really flexible thing, right? We've got a lot of situations where there are people who the process of just delivering this content directly through the enterprise platform doesn't always go really smoothly with how their architecture is already set up. And so, yeah, we're definitely looking at being able to offer that as a subscription, to be able to get all that content in those scans, and then export that in data sets that you'd be able to view inside of a dashboard like a Tableau or a Domo. I have to mention both of them. They're both customers. Does that answer your question? I see some nice positive nods. Okay, anybody else, or should I release you early? I say that like I've got control, right? So a long time ago, I was given a training in San Francisco. This is before Salt. I'm given this training on Red Hat Linux, and at this training center, every afternoon at about 2:00, they would bake cookies. And so at about 1:55, the smell of cookies wafts into the room. And sure enough, there's a gentleman up front who, as if possessed, his eyes glaze over. He rises and says, "Cookies." He just walks out. I mean, I knew they were big. I was going to let them out in a few minutes. I mean, I know they're not done yet. But he just walks out. Whole class follows him. 2 days later, I sit down and I'm like, that was funny how you walked out on me. And he said, "I did what?" Some things you just can't win, man. So yeah, I know I don't have control over keeping you in here. All right, thanks for coming. We'll see you again next year.